All right. Hello and welcome back. My name is Jackson Kent, and today I'm very excited to be bringing another episode of the UP Economics Club to you guys. Today, I'm very lucky to welcome our guest, Ryan Atkins. Ryan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks. I am a UP graduate as of, twice now actually. So I graduated my undergraduate in economics in 2014, and then I went back again because it was so much fun the first time around to get my master's degree, and I finished that in the end of 2019. And kind of since then, I've kind of bounced around to a couple jobs and done the postgraduate thing, but I'm really excited to get an opportunity to chat with the Economics Club a little bit and kind of some subjects that are close to my heart and I've thought a lot about over the last few years. So it's kind of exciting that we're thinking about it and putting together some real material for potential economics students and what is economics and why is this important in the business world, et cetera. I think it's pretty fun.
Most definitely. Thank you, Ryan. So to start us off here, what did you see yourself doing after graduation, and how far has that vision shifted from the reality of what's actually happened?
Sure. So I guess a tiny little bit of history for myself. When I was an undergrad, I originally started as a computer science engineer, quickly realized I hated engineering, and shifted into the sciences. And I was a biology major with kind of the intent of going on to pharmaceutical school or something along those lines. Come my junior year, my test scores were all good, and I was kind of lined up to do that, and realized I really didn't want to go to school for another 4 years at the end of my undergrad. And kind of looked around. I'd taken a bunch of the entry-level economics courses that a lot of the bachelor or the College of Arts and Sciences students at the time were required to take, and really enjoyed the subject matter, and it was a good fit. I was able to finish in 4 years, et cetera, to switch to economics. And the reason that's important is I think it leads into what was I going to do when I left school. I wasn't really 100% sure what I was going to do when I left school. I know I wanted to go into the business world. That was kind of the reason I shifted to economics. But I didn't want to get like a hardcore business degree. I wanted something that was a broader spectrum and a better kind of make yourself as a better professional kind of across the board versus just like, I know accounting, I know finance. Not that those skills aren't extremely helpful, and I've learned that kind of as I've gotten into the business world. But I definitely left my undergraduate with I am going to find a business job somewhere. I didn't know what that was going to be. I originally thought it was going to be very math focused because I was a pretty math focused economics major, as well as in the sciences and in engineering. That was kind of one of my major skill sets, as well as IT and computers, which were still a big passion of mine and interest of mine as I went through school, even though I left the computer science world at the beginning of kind of my college adventure. So, in honesty, I just wanted a job. And when I got out in 2014, the economic crash had been kind of correcting itself, but the job market for young professionals was pretty abysmal. I was lucky enough to find an internship with a company. I actually sent like 3 or 4 applications to a bunch of internships they had available for a company called In-Situ, which is a Boeing subsidiary, who I ended up working with for about 5 years. And they just offered me one of them. So I got to interview for a bunch, and one of them came as an opportunity. It was in contracts, which was not something I was 100% sure I was going to be going into. But it just sounded like a really cool opportunity to, it was a position that really touched a lot of areas of business. And that was what I was interested in. I just wanted to be doing something that was kind of business wide. I didn't want a hardcore focus. I was trying to avoid like an accounting position or a finance position. I wanted more of kind of a general business administrator, business analyst type spot. So that's kind of what I was shooting for. And that's why, sort of how I ended up into contracts originally.
Most definitely. So it kind of seems like you ended up in a place kind of that you shot for when you switched over from the computer science world or the science world in general over to a more business oriented track. So you mentioned that you chose economics kind of because you didn't want to follow a hard set business, avenue like finance or accounting, but you kind of just wanted to get a job like in the business world. And then you graduated from UP, you submitted applications or a few different applications to the same company for different positions in that air. And then you found that spot because you just kind of wanted to end up somewhere in the business world. So a question I have for you there is, because of that kind of more holistic attitude you had toward what you wanted to do in business, do you think that what you studied before you changed your track, like in computer science and the sciences, helped you to broaden your horizons and make you more readily available to take on different positions?
Yeah, it's funny actually, because I really, when I talk to folks about economics major, because when I graduated, and I'm pretty sure UP is still kind of the same way. There's not a lot of us
Right.
at the school. So when I graduated, I had my own tassel and I had my own little spot in the graduation walk, my own little spot in the book and everything. So I was the only one. So there was no one else. But the reason I really, really gravitated towards it, and I think what tied back so well to my sciences education leading up to it, is economics is a subject matter, obviously, but really what it does is it teaches you how to think. And I think that's what the sciences do as well, more than anything. And what I've learned as I've gotten in business, and now, 6-ish years into my career, in a couple different positions now, what matters more than anything is knowing how to think, learning subjects, learning how accounting works from not as a CPA and working as an accountant, but from a business perspective, somebody just understanding how accounting works in business. Those things are pretty easy to pick up along the way. I think the hardest part is knowing how to think, how to problem solve, how to walk through issues in a constructive way and build out a theory and test that theory. And I think even though economics doesn't necessarily follow the scientific method that you learn in chemistry and biology, I really do think it kind of does follow that method without the same nomenclature. And I think that's what's so important to the economics field, and why I liked it so much, is it was about how do you think? It was a how do you problem solve? And that's what's really, more than anything, helped me in my career, is most of what I've learned, because I didn't really know what to expect coming out, in the business world. Most of the business world it's just problem solving. That's all it is. It might be a different subject matter, it might be a different question, but it's all just problem solving. And I think what really mattered with my economics degree and really helped me kind of sell myself when I went to talk to these folks during interviews was, look, I can solve problems. I don't know what the problems are going to be yet. I might not even know how that problem actually works, but that part's the easy part, in my opinion. The hard part's how do you actually go about solving a problem. And I think that has really helped me kind of along my way. I've picked up the other kind of hard skills generally, but that just knowing how to think critically has been the biggest benefit of kind of both my sciences and then leading into economics, because I think it does the same thing. The skill set I walked away with, I think that's by far the most beneficial, is just how do you think?
Yeah, most definitely, Ryan. I think that's a great way to put it. I mean, even me in my the beginning of my business career, like some of the interviews I went to, like I think the hard skills were the least meaningful part of what they cared about, and really they wanted to understand how I reacted and walked through problems, like how you explained, is what you got the most out of in your economics degree, and kind of what you've experienced in the business world. So that was definitely a great way to put it. And you're definitely making a hard sell for the economics degree. So always question out there, pay attention. Um, so we're going to move on to the next question. What's the biggest difference between the professional you are today and the professional you thought you would be while still an undergrad?
So I think in terms of my actual role, I definitely wouldn't have seen myself necessarily in contracts. I mean, at the time, I didn't even know that kind of role existed. But I think from a step back and looking at it as just kind of a holistic view, I came out and kind of originally saw myself, I'm going to be an analyst. I'm going to be some kind of, Excel monkey that's just powering through reports and stuff. And I did do a lot of that, and I still do some of that. But I think what's really shifted in my mind, and this is partially thanks to going back and getting my master's and getting a lot of the kind of hard skill classes that I didn't take as a BA economics major, like accounting and finance and strategy and marketing, all these things. What I've really shifted to is I want to focus on, just helping a business strategically. And that can be from working in sales and how do we guide a business through targeting specific markets. That could be working in my current role as a contract specialist and helping the company tackle kind of real world problems that are popping up on a contract that we're actually working against at a single time. And it's something that I didn't see as a tie-in originally, but I do think economics has played a big role in for me. And that kind of background is that it's where I originally saw myself as kind of a traditional analyst. I've really found that my real focus in business now is just helping a business, just being able to see all the moving parts and help kind of guide a particular issue or a contract or a project through completion and in a positive way for the business, being revenue and the least amount of risk, et cetera, et cetera. That's really where I've turned as a professional now, is that's the piece I really enjoy, is kind of how do you put all these different parts that make up a business together and get a positive outcome out of it. And I think it's probably the biggest shift I've seen for myself over the last 5-6 years, is realizing that about myself, that's the direction I really want to go, versus kind of just being a traditional entry-level analyst kind of concept.
Yeah, no, definitely. So originally you kind of thought you were going to be on a hard track. You thought, okay, economics, that means analyst, right? So I
Yep.
should, focus on being an Excel monkey. I really like that phrase, by the way, or something like that, something in that field. And then as you kind of learn more, as you get more experience, you come to understand that really what I'm trying to do is, at the end of the day, to help the business, and doing that any way I can is like the best thing that I can do for myself and for the business, in terms of coming at things from an approach that will push everything forward, not just one part, not just one niche, but your niche is the business. So I really
Yep.
like that. Okay, next question. How has your industry been affected by the pandemic we're going through, and what kind of changes can you expect coming out of it? So I'm not sure if you mentioned at all what you're doing right now, but maybe a bit of a prelude on that would be good for answering this question. I'm not sure if we
Yeah, absolutely. So originally I was working in defense for a drone manufacturer that was a part of the Boeing company. Now I work for in the wind industry for Vestas in Portland. I continue to do contract specialist work, but the bulk of what Vestas does is we manufacture wind turbine components, and then we help from a technical standpoint in the installation. We do some installation ourselves, but we mostly send technicians out to a big project site where they're building a huge wind farm, and provide kind of the subject matter expertise in helping whoever's contractor that's actually installing the wind project. We go out there and help from a technical perspective, like walking them through certain steps, and we help them through all the kind of the hoops you have to get to having a working wind turbine from just pieces of components sitting on the ground. So for all intents and purposes, it's a manufacturing / construction role. I work a little more on the construction side than I do on the manufacturing side. So obviously my answer is going to be a little bit more geared towards the construction aspect and working on these project sites. As to how it's impacted, I mean, obviously the nationwide impact in business is remote work. That's probably the biggest impact that we've seen. It's shifted a lot of companies' points of view. I mean, even my role when I originally started at Vestas was, well, you have to be in the office. This is a role you've got to fax letters, mail letters, respond to letters, write letters, make change orders, do amendments. All this has got to be done in person via fax machines or via mail. And what we quickly learned when we all got kicked out of the office and sent home is, you don't have to be in the office to do any of that stuff. You can fax via the internet, and you can still go to a FedEx office down the street from your house. And all of a sudden we realized, well, shoot, we don't need to do this job that everyone was positive we have to do from home. And it's not just my role, or even just Vestas as a whole. I think a lot of companies have come to realize, well, you know what, we don't have to do all this stuff from a desk. I think that's going to be a big shift. I think companies are going to view remote work as not more productive, but not less productive, like they always viewed it before in a lot of ways. Obviously, some companies are a little more bleeding edge when it came to remote employment, but I think that's a huge shift, is we're going to see a lot more remote, a lot more opportunity for remote work. On the other hand of all of this, I think what's neat about Vestas is safety has always been like their number one thing. I mean, they take safety more important than any company I've seen or worked with. The first bullet point on any meeting, regardless if it's a monthly meeting with the executive team or a weekly meeting with the entire construction department, or just single projects talking about weekly project updates, the first bullet point is always walking through all the safety items that impacted the site. So I don't think that's going to change for Vestas, because COVID is very much a safety concern. And so we've been taking it extremely seriously, because they take all safety really, really seriously. But I think a lot more companies are going to have to make a focus on that safety of their workers isn't just making sure they don't lift too heavy weights or they are harnessed onto a ladder, but there's also a health aspect that we're going to have to keep track of, as well as how do we make sure your suppliers or the contractors you're working with are also following those. That's been the big shift as well, is how do we make sure everybody's kind of on the same page from a safety perspective, particularly when it comes to the pandemic. And I think it's it's probably going to be a major topic for a while, obviously, until the pandemic is slowed or, if ever gone.
Mhm.
So I think those are probably the two big pieces. You're going to see a lot more focus on potential remote work, and you're going to see a bigger focus on health and safety of employees, and how that's a little different than just like making sure they don't lift heavy boxes. It's another level of that companies are really having to sit down and think about.
Most definitely. And Vestas is really taking a strong stance on making sure that they do the best they can in that space, like you said in the first bullet point in every single meeting. So that's great to hear. Um, I would like to see personally other companies taking suit in that and following with that precedent that safety is number one. I think that's a great place to start. But otherwise, Ryan, it's been really great talking to you. I think we all learned a lot and have gathered some really interesting insights in terms of what you do, your education, what economics can be for a UP student. So thank you so much. This is the time we have for today. And I'd like to thank you for coming on.
Great. Oh, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity to come chat with everybody.
Definitely. All right, guys. So this has been another episode of the UP Economics Club web series. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll welcome you back next week. Cheers.